Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Modern Warfare in Depth. In today's episode, I want to show you the best MP7 class to use in Warzone. The MP7 doesn't quite have the same time to kill as the MP5 or the RAM or even the AUG or some of the other weapons that we talk about frequently here on In Depth. But what the MP7 does have is a naturally large magazine, an extremely predictable recoil pattern, good handling, and it just shoots really fast, which gives you consistent damage as long as you're tracking your target, and it can be quite difficult to deal with on the receiving end, so it has a lot of nice intangible or handling style benefits. Our goal today is to make a purely bonus stat MP7 that is suppressed, because that's pretty much essential for Warzone, and also pretty snappy. We want it to be a little bit faster reacting than the base MP7. The gameplay you're going to get to see is some of me using this best class that we discuss, and some of me using the MP7 that you pick up off the ground, because that one is almost the same as the one I'm going to recommend. Maybe mine, I think they traded out stippled grip tape for some sort of optical attachment. The standard Pro MP7 is probably the best one. It's basically the same as the Vault 11 MP7 that you're going to get. I don't think this class is going to be too surprising, which is why the episode's shorter. But let's take a look at our barrel considerations, because that's a great place to start with all these weapons. The base MP7 has a maximum damage range of 7.5 meters, which is just very, very low. The FSS strike barrel can move that up to 10, the recon almost doubles it at 12, and the monolithic suppressor takes it up to 10 meters. Now what's interesting about the MP7 is that it also has a cap, so that if you stack, say, the longest barrel and the monolithic suppressor, it's not going to get any longer than 12 meters. No combination of barrels or anything that you put on it will get you more than 12 meters of maximum damage range. Since none of these significantly improve your range, at least for Warzone ranges, and many of them come with pretty significant aim down sight time penalties, I think the smartest thing to choose is the monolithic suppressor, because that gives you near to the maximum range boost cap. It has less ADS penalty than any barrel attachment, and it's also going to add sound suppression to your weapon. So again, there's not really a reason to play with your barrels very much on the MP7. Just adding the monolithic suppressor will do pretty much everything that you need done with one attachment and with minimal penalties. I am going to recommend the Merc foregrip. That's pretty much the best grip right now because it tightens hipfire spread and your vertical recoil and your first shot's accuracy. If you want to learn more about why I like the Merc foregrip so much, you can click the link in the description. That'll take you back to the last episode. We covered that in excruciating detail, but the Merc foregrip is definitely the way to go, but it does have a slight aim down sights time penalty of about 1 frame. It's actually about 1.5 on the MP7. When it comes to magazine attachments, there's only 2 choices. You can either choose 50 or 60 round mags. The 50 round mags will have 1 frame slower aim down sights time and about a 2% movement speed penalty. If you go with the 60 round mags, you have the exact same 1 frame slower aim down sights time, but the move speed penalty doubles, so it's about a 4% move speed penalty, which I think that most of you might notice. It's kind of significant. Personally, I prefer 60 round mags with the MP7 because its base damage is so low, and because I spray with this weapon so much just to put shots downstream, I feel like I need the biggest mags possible. If you go with smaller mags, it can occasionally be difficult to drop multiple enemies or to finish them off without having to reload, or if you're shooting at people at long ranges, you just want a lot of shots before you have to reload. It just doesn't deal very much damage per shot, so having a bigger mag is very valuable to me. 1 frame of ADS penalty is definitely worth it to get the bigger mag, and the movement speed isn't ideal, but we do have a way to fix that. Let's take a look at the MP7 that we have so far. Our MP7 has great range, a big magazine, and sound suppression, but it's quite slow. Every attachment that we've put on it has slowed down the aim down sights time, so now we're probably sitting at about 4 frames slower ADS, which isn't going to feel very good, and it's going to move slowly. There are a couple of choices that we can do to speed this up. We have stock attachments, and we also have lasers and the stippled grip. I think the stippled grip is the strongest one because it gives you 2 less frames of sprint out time, which is just fantastic because you will be sprinting with the MP7, and 1 frame faster aim down sights time. That's not crazy awesome in my opinion, but it's a nice 2-for-1 bonus. I also prefer the stippled grip over some of the other attachments because it's just the simplest thing to speed up your gun with the least downsides. Like if I were gonna run lasers or whatever, my lasers would be visible and that could give me away and get me killed, but this will do an almost as good a job and keep me concealed. The real downside to stippled grip, which we talked about in the Growl episode, is that it does add aiming instability, so your iron sights will wobble a little bit more, but that's not important at all up close in the ranges that you should be using the MP7, and I very seriously doubt that many of you will notice it. My final choice today comes down to either choosing no stock or the close quarters combat stock attachments. You can do lasers, and we'll talk about them in a minute, but it's really a choice of stocks. The close quarters combat stock and the no stock, with this particular build, both of them will have the same net aim down sights time, and I'm putting a little asterisk there. If you were to test this on the base MP7 with no attachments, you will find that the no stock actually aim down sights a little bit faster than the close quarters combat one. But because we've stacked on the attachments and we've changed the percentages and ratios and a few little things here and there, with this specific build, both of them will have the same results, though that may not be true on other builds. The no stock will outperform the base stock. I do gotta admit though, the no stock has more recoil, and like in previous episodes, it gives you a smaller iron sight because your gun is more forward, it's like zoomed out more, which can make it more difficult to aim. But on the upside, it will increase your movement speed, which we have unfortunately hurt with our 60 round magazines, so this can help compensate for the lack of movement speed. If you take a look at the recoil tests of the base MP7, the MP7 with the close quarters combat stock, and the MP7 with the no stock, there's not that much difference between them. I do admit that I think that the no stock attachment does kick more overall, but it's not significantly more, and it's quite easy to control even still because the MP7 has such a predictable pattern. So, in my opinion, I don't believe that the recoil tests indicate any major losses with no stock in this case, and especially up close. Maybe like it's super long ranges, but you really shouldn't be using the MP7 at those ranges anyway. So I choose the no stock attachment to help mitigate the slower movement speed from the 60 round mags. That means we're getting closer to having a pure bonus MP7. So I want to take a look at the stats of the base MP7. If you just pick it up off the ground, it's going to have an aim down sights time of 200 milliseconds, a sprint out time of 150 milliseconds, and the range is about 7.5 meters for its maximum damage range. My recommended best MP7 stats would leave you with an aim down sights time of 183 milliseconds, which is a frame faster, sprint out time of 116, which is 2 frames faster, a little bit more range, up to 10 meters, you have sound suppression, 20 more rounds in your magazine, but minus 1% movement speed. So it's not a pure bonus stat MP7. However, I don't believe that many of you are going to notice that minus 1% movement speed. I think that most of you are going to find that that is well below your threshold of noticing. And you might say this one would kick more than the base, but once you put the Merc foregrip on, that pretty much cancels out the no stock, and the recoil is very, very similar to the base recoil. So at the end of the episode, there's basically 3 attachments that you just have to have to build a good MP7 in Warzone. That's the monolithic suppressor, the Merc foregrip, and the 60 round mags. All of these are just must-haves because they're just the most best, optimally efficient thing for the mode. But that leaves you with freedom to play with your last 2 attachments. Now, all of these slow your gun down, so you want your last 2 attachments to speed it up. And it's kind of a mix and match, and it leaves you with choices of going with a stock attachment or a laser attachment or the stippled grip. For me, it comes down to choosing the close quarters combat stock or no stock. And again, we chose no stock for this episode, but if you dislike the recoil or the zoom on the sights, close quarter combat stock is almost identical. And then you have a choice of stippled grip or a laser. Now, personally, I try to avoid lasers as much as I can. I don't like the tac laser or the 5 milliwatt laser that much in Warzone because they give away my position. However, if you run those with the MP7, you will get instead of the stippled grip, you can just chunk the stippled grip. The tac laser will give you a much, much faster aim down sights time, and the 5 milliwatt laser will give you a much faster sprint out time and a much better hip fire at the cost of revealing your position. So it's basically mix and match with the last 2. You could pick any combination of these and you would still end up with an almost pure bonus stat MP7 that outperforms the base version. And in my opinion, that's a good thing because it gives all of you the freedom to build your classes how you see fit. And if you like things that I don't like, or if you don't mind the lasers, then they're probably a better choice than stippled grip or the stocks. That's all for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. For those of you that have watched here to the very end, then I wanted to let you know that tonight is the night that I'm doing the Xbox Scuff giveaway on Mixer. I'm just going to be giving away a free Scuff controller for Xbox on my stream. So please do click the link down there below, the Mixer link. Pop by the stream this evening, follow me, do whatever. And one of you, quite randomly, because we'll be picking numbers out of a hat tonight, will be receiving the Xbox One Scuff controller. So I hope you enjoy that. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.
Planting